17th century France. For several months, the French courtesan Ninon de l'Enclos, who moved freely within aristocratic circles, patiently listened to the stories told by Marquis de Sévigné about his attempts to ensnare an extraordinarily beautiful young countess who seemed completely beyond his reach. At the time, Ninon was 62 years old, and in matters of love, she was, in truth, no match for the young and vigorous Marquis, who had only recently turned 22 and had not yet experienced any real romantic adventures. At first, she laughed with amusement at the mistakes revealed in the stories. Gradually, however, she grew tired of hearing them. Recognizing his impatience, his rough manner, and especially his incompetence in dealing with women, Ninon decided to take the young man under her guidance. First of all, she told him that he must think of himself as a soldier preparing for battle and regard that unattainably beautiful countess as a fortress that had to be conquered. To break down the fortress's resistance, military strategy would be required. Every step had to be carefully planned, and every action, down to the smallest detail, had to be executed with precision and forethought. While discussing the opening moves of the campaign with the Marquis, Ninon de l'Enclos advised him to position himself as close to the Countess as possible while maintaining an appearance of complete indifference. The next time he found himself alone with her, the Marquis was to make it clear that he was not one of her admirers pursuing her affections, but rather a sincere friend. This was important because it would lower her guard and distract her. The Countess would naturally lose some of her caution toward the Marquis and come to believe that his only interest was friendship. Once that was accomplished, Ninon would develop the next phase of the plan. After the Countess had been successfully distracted, she needed to be made jealous. At one of the grand celebrations held in Paris, the Marquis was to appear accompanied by a beautiful young woman. The Countess was already surrounded by many young and attractive ladies, so the Marquis himself now had to be seen in the company of Paris's most charming beauties. Seeing the Marquis in an entirely different light, as a genuine man desired by beautiful women, the Countess was expected to burn with jealousy. Ninon had to expend considerable effort to explain this to the Marquis, but she patiently made him understand that a woman often desires a man who is also desired by other women. Such a circumstance not only elevates that man's value in her eyes almost instantly, but also makes the challenge of winning him over far more exciting and captivating. At that moment, when the Countess was burning with jealousy and exhausted by uncertainty, the time had come to begin a campaign of distraction. Following Ninon's instructions, the Marquis started declining the various balls and social gatherings that the Countess expected him to attend. Then, quite unexpectedly, he began appearing at events he had never attended before, but that the Countess frequented regularly. It was best that she could no longer predict his movements. All of this threw the Countess into confusion, a clear sign that she was gradually being undone. At first, everything went according to plan, and it continued that way for several weeks. Ninon closely monitored the Marquis' progress. Through her network of informants, she learned that the Countess was listening to the Marquis more attentively than before and laughing more heartily whenever he said something amusing. Reports reached Ninon that the Countess had suddenly become interested in the Marquis and had begun asking questions about him. The Marquis' friends told him that at social gatherings, the Countess seemed to be looking for him and secretly watching him from afar. Ninon was now completely convinced that the young woman had fallen into her trap.
Then everything was resolved within a few weeks or a few months, and eventually the fortress surrendered. A few days later, the Marquis paid a visit to the Countess. They were alone. Suddenly, the Marquis changed completely, apologizing for his earlier ardor and passion, and contrary to Ninon's instructions, he took the Countess's hand and confessed his love to her. The Countess was embarrassed, while the Marquis had expected a different reaction from her. The Countess responded with cold politeness. Throughout the evening, she avoided looking at the Marquis whenever possible, and before long, she wished him good night and excused herself. The next time the Marquis came to visit the Countess, he was told that she is not at home. Finally, when the Countess agreed to meet him again, both of them felt uncomfortable and were unable to find common ground with each other. Thus, the spell lost all of its power.
Now let's comment on this story. Ninon de l'Enclos knew everything there was to know about the art of love and seduction. Among her admirers were some of the greatest writers, thinkers, and statesmen of her time, including La Rochefoucauld, Molière, and Richelieu. Even after she had grown older, many French families entrusted their children to her, asking her to teach them the art of love.
To Ninon, it was obvious that no matter how different men and women appeared on the surface, they were remarkably alike when it came to being seduced. Deep down, people know they are being drawn in by desire, yet they willingly surrender because they enjoy being guided in that way. There is a unique pleasure in letting go of control, relaxing, and allowing another person to lead you into unfamiliar emotional territory. All of this belongs to the art of seduction. Yet seduction itself is inherently subtle and elusive. It can never be fully understood or reduced to a simple formula. One must never state one's intentions openly or express the goal too directly. Instead, the key is to mislead and distract the person you hope to attract. To make them willingly follow you, you must leave them uncertain, intrigued, and slightly confused.
You should send misleading signals. For example, behave as though another woman or man has captured your attention, much like a hunter using a decoy duck to distract its prey. You should conceal your true intentions from the person you desire and maintain an air of indifference. Such behavior not only unsettles the other person, but also intensifies their curiosity and deepens their interest in you. Put yourself in the place of the young countess from the story. After the Marquise's series of carefully calculated actions, she begins to feel as though she has become part of a game. Yet it is precisely this game that captivates her. She has no idea where the Marquise intends to lead her, but despite that uncertainty, she is ready for whatever may come.
She becomes increasingly curious about his every move, wondering what he will do next. She even finds herself taking pleasure in her own embarrassment and jealousy, for almost any emotion seems more exciting than the dull routine of an ordinary life. Of course, the Countess might have recognized the Marquis's true intentions. Many men eventually reveal them. But for a young woman, the anticipation and the mystery of what would happen next were far more fascinating. Perhaps for her, the length of time this intriguing game could continue mattered even more than discovering what kind of man the Marquis truly was. But in the end, it was that single phrase, "I love you," that put the Marquis in a perilous position and brought everything to an end. All intrigue and mystery vanished, leaving nothing but the open display of naked passion. His intentions became unmistakably clear. He truly meant to seduce the Countess. The behavior that had once seemed so enigmatic now appeared utterly foolish and shameless.
Do not be held a cheat, even though it is impossible to live today without being one. Let your greatest cunning lie in covering up what looks like cunning. Balthazar Gracian.
Well, that's it for today. I hope you were able to take away something valuable from today's lesson. But this is only the beginning. Today we explored the transgression of the law. What happens when the rule "conceal your intentions" is violated? In the next video, we'll cover the observance of the law, showing how this principle works when it is applied correctly. There are many more fascinating laws and powerful lessons still to come. If you don't want to miss any of our upcoming content, be sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you in the next videos.